Now, on last night's show, we discussed a piece in the Australian newspaper by Tony Grey from Pancontinental Mining, making a really compelling case for nuclear to become our new baseload power. Well, earlier today, I caught up with the man himself, and you can't argue against his logic. Take a look. Tony Grey, thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure. Pleasure.
We keep getting told by our younger population and certainly those within the Green movement and Labor that we've got to reduce our carbon footprint because we're generating too much CO2. However, your answer is putting that aside because we need reliable power, right?
Exactly right. I mean, there are two types of power. One is what they call baseload, that is a very a long-term, stable power supply, and the other is intermittent, that it can deal with fluctuations. Well, the latter is given to renewables, and the former is given to nuclear power. It, together with hydro, are the only two sources of baseload power without any emissions.
And it will be decades before we get to the stage where we have the battery power or battery technology to hang on to the power that's produced at those intermittent times to produce baseload power.
Exactly right. Exactly right. We're not there yet at all.
Which brings us to uranium and the use of uranium, which we have in plentiful supply for nuclear reactors.
Yes, Australia has the largest uranium resources in the world. We're the third largest producer of uranium, and we sell uranium all over the world for use in nuclear power, but we cannot have nuclear power ourselves. That seems ridiculous.
It does seem ridiculous.
Yes.
And so how many countries do we sell our uranium to?
Oh, we would sell probably 10 or 20 countries. Quite a number of countries we sell it to. But we can't employ it ourselves because of prohibitive legislation that was passed 20 years ago.
OK, but the Coalition has the numbers in the House now to lift that prohibition and start discussing the concept of bringing uranium into the energy grid.
Exactly right. As the public knows, there is a parliamentary committee that's been set up by the government to examine this question, and they've released their report recently, saying that given certain safeguards, there should be a movement towards at least considering nuclear power for us.
OK, those who haven't done their homework on this subject would instantly think of the Japanese reactor drama that went on at Fukushima. They might even think about Chernobyl from the 50s. What can you say about the technologies that could be used today and how they contrast to the technologies that apply in those two places?
Well, first of all, there's been a lot of movement, a lot of improvement in the technology on the safety side, but also on the waste disposal side, which is also, in fact, that's an even more important anti-nuclear argument than the first one is. Finland is well advanced towards going to a long-term waste disposal facility in their country. And once that is in operation, which will be in the next few years, that'll demonstrate it can be done, and we'll remove that argument.
And as Bob Hawke always said, we should be doing the collection of waste materials from nuclear plants. That was one of his big arguments, wasn't it?
Exactly right, exactly. And of course we can. I mean, the technology is there. You need the technology, but you also need geologically stable rock formations, of which we have plenty. So we're a natural candidate for that. There's no question. But the really exciting development that's occurred in the last few years in nuclear is the advent of what is called small modular reactors. These are reactors of 300 megawatts or below. They can go down to about 5 megawatts. The technology was originated in the military, in the naval, in ships and in submarines.
Nuclear submarines. This is where the technology comes from.
It comes from that, but it's been applied to peaceful purposes and on land purposes.
I was in Britain 12 months ago and I spoke to those in the nuclear sector about these modular systems. They are trying to get the British government to pick them up because they have pockets of manufacturing, pockets of mining where a modular unit, a modular reactor could be perfectly placed.
Exactly right, and so do we. I mean, they can go down to 5 megawatts. I mean, you can put them in mining installations. One of the interesting things about them is that they are manufactured in factories, basically, so that they can go to a cookie cutter type of application. And the smaller ones can be put on trucks and driven to the installation or the site that they...
See, here we have this wide brown land that is Australia, far-flung communities where mining and manufacturing occur. We're a better country, better place than anywhere in the world to use this technology.
Yes, we are, and also we can use it for desalination. We know we're in the presence of a huge drought, a dreadful drought at the present time, and we're given to that. Every few years, Australia has a drought, then the rains come, but then the droughts come again, and we don't seem to do anything about accessing sufficient water to take us through these difficult times. Well, small modular reactors could be a solution to that because they're flexible. You can take them anywhere. You can take them into the inland where there is no seawater, for instance, and pump up brackish water from the underground sources and desalinate it on site.
Not just desalinate water from the ocean, but desalinate them from
brackish water from, yes, indeed.
This is so easy to understand, so why don't our politicians take the first step and get rid of the prohibition?
They should do that. There's been a lot of mythology and ideology attached to the anti-nuclear movement. They seem to be stuck in the past. All their arguments are 20 years old, which is when that legislation was passed. The world has moved on since the 20 years, and we're in a position now to take a new look at nuclear power, to see what the reality is in modern circumstances.
See, here we are.
See what the benefits are.
Exactly. We should be talking about this frequently. See, I went on a water convoy with a group of truckers over the weekend, taking 500,000 litres of water to places in Condobolin and Barradine and Murrarunda. They've run out of water, many of these people. They've run out of their bore water as well. The water that arrived enabled them for the first time in 2 years to have a decent shower with decent water. It's just extraordinary that in this country we have a lack of water. What we don't have is a lack of water. We actually have water, but we don't know how to store it properly.
That's right.
So if we put desalination plants in far-flung corners of our states and our territories, and they were powered by modular nuclear reactors, we could solve our water problem.
Exactly right. We certainly could do it.
Without building billion-dollar dams.
Yeah, and isn't it absurd that we're not allowed to do it because we have legislation that prohibits us from doing it? It's so ridiculous, it's beyond belief. It's almost like, I mean, this is 20 years ago we had this prohibition, but still today. It's almost like abolishing the patent office on the basis that you think that every possible invention has already been made.
And bear in mind, correct me if I'm wrong here, there are numerous locations in Europe that are using these modular plants already.
Well, they are, and of course China is moving ahead, and the United States is too. The Department of Energy in the American government has been funding this development now for several years. There are companies out of Silicon Valley that are doing IPOs. In fact, some have already. There's a company called NuScale that expects to have its first commercially available reactor in 5 years' time. They're well advanced in getting environmental approval from the Nuclear Regulatory Agency there. It's all happening, and China is in the forefront.
And we're back in the rear slot.
We're back because we're not allowed to do it.
Yeah.